Good morning, everybody. My name is Carrow Brown. I am an urban fantasy author. I am also the executive assistant over at LaterPress, and if you are here, it's because it is time for a pep talk. Now, maybe you saw the title of the video and you were like, maybe Carrow can give me a pep talk to help me feel inspired to keep writing or working on my book, or it's a pep talk because somebody sent you the video and they thought maybe what I had to say was something that you needed to hear. Either way, I appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to what I have to say, and let's go ahead and talk about this. You don't like your book. You got feedback about your book, and it's just making you feel really down. Or maybe you're in that zone of fear when it comes to mastering new skills, where you have reached a point where you are too afraid to keep going because the idea of failure and rejection is starting to weigh down on your mind, along with the whispering voice of, I'm just not good enough to do this. Unless you're a narcissist, feeling that way is completely normal. It's part of the growing process. And unfortunately, you're not really going to leave that space until you persevere through it, which is really terrible to say. I really hate giving you that bad news, but the only way that you can kind of get over this moment is that you have to keep going through it. And I'll share a story of a regret that I actually have, both with my writing and kind of with here on YouTube, and maybe you can kind of learn from my history a little bit, and then we'll keep talking about why you should keep working on your stuff. Back in 2020, the craziest year of our history, I was actually getting a little bit more popular here on AuthorTube. I was going to more streams and I was seeing more people. I was getting a lot more eyes on me. And coupled with a situation that was going on with a group of people that I was in, it really intimidated me. It really gave me pause and kept me awake at night because I wasn't used to that kind of thing, right? It was a new sensation. It was definitely outside my comfort zone, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And I think what ended up tipping me over was that friend situation that occurred. And instead of persevering and pushing through it and still being an authority on the subject that I really wanted to be here on YouTube, I actually retreated. I pulled back. I completely pulled away, and I didn't try anymore. And in doing that, I lost a lot of momentum. I lost a lot of credibility, and I lost a lot of authority. And that, that was the price that I paid. And if current me could go back to past me and have that conversation, would have been kind of like, keep doing what you're doing and just do it in a different circle. But I'm here now, and this is kind of where it is. And as much as I still don't like making videos here on YouTube, because it's just really not, being an author tube on YouTube is not a very lucrative experience. But the reason I keep doing it is actually the same reason I like to get up in the morning. Now, this is going to come full circle. Just bear with me for a moment. When you're writing your story, I want you to ask yourself, like, what is the reason that you write this story that you're struggling with right now? Like, what is it about the story that inspires you to write it? And if it's along the lines of, I want to be on night shows, or I want to be famous or be interviewed, then maybe take a step back and let's reevaluate that motive a little bit. But the reason that I get up in the morning is literally storytelling. I absolutely love stories, and I love how stories, throughout ages have continued to persevere. And more importantly, I really like the evolution of stories, basically from when we used to tell tales in the cave all the way up to the way that we, depict heroes in novels these days, right? It says so much about our culture and the lessons that we want to be persevered throughout time, so we can kind of reflect. It's such a beautiful art. And that's why you guys sometimes see me get really up in arms with the way that storytelling is getting abused by like Hollywood and publishers and stuff like that, because in all honesty, they're perverting the art, and not the fun perverted way. And the reason I continue to make educational videos about storytelling, how to write books, and why I make blog posts about it and all that other stuff is because I believe that this art, again, is very beautiful, and I think it's so ingrained into the culture and helps shape what it is that we are. We, as human beings, are naturally gravitated towards stories. We want to hear stories. We want to tell stories. Right? And so I wake up in the morning for storytelling, and I want to share that with everybody. And that's kind of the thing that always pushes me outside of my comfort zone. I always want to go and do that for folks. And I want to do it for me too. I took a break, right? I took a 3-month break from storytelling because I was encountering a very hard time, just trying to make any kind of sales. And we're talking break-even sales, not make profit sales, just break-even. What that ended up coming down to at the end of the day was just that my approach to selling myself. And so I'm kind of readdressing that right now. When I took that 3-month break, I even though I thought like, quitting was the best thing for me, I could focus on other things and stuff like that, I still wanted to do it. I naturally wanted to do it. I was finding other ways to tell stories that wasn't in the medium that I was originally doing. That's something that I really would like you to take a moment to ask about your work. What is it about this story, this book that you're writing that makes you want to get up and write it? Go ahead, just get a sticky note. Just write it on the sticky note right now. And make it 3 words, right? What is the 3-word reason about why you have to write this story? So go ahead and hold on to that sticky note. You're probably going to need it a little bit later down the road. Maybe put it on your laptop or wherever it is that you write your story at. And every now and then when you're feeling really down, just remember to look at it and don't let go of that guiding star for yourself, because that is going to have to be the reminder to help you stick to it. Because if like giving up is really easy to do, right? It's the easy thing. A lot of people give up on stuff. They give up on diets. They give up on bad habits. They give up on everything because it's just easier to do. But this is your story, right? Only you can tell the story. There's maybe several stories that could be like it, but they weren't told by you, right? They weren't told with your flair. They weren't told with your word choice. They weren't told with your characters. And that is something that you should really keep pursuing. I mean, who cares if something like it has been done before? You haven't done it. And so that it's your time to go and put that kind of like mark on the story. Like, go, do it. You have my approval. Go, go, go. Now, this part of the pep talk might be coming when you're getting to the revision editing process of your story. And this is kind of where I find a lot of writers have some struggles with, because when we move into this part of the manuscript, and maybe you're an outlier, one of you might be an outlier where you're like, oh my goodness, I love the editing process. I love to get in there and just nom, 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 nom. And good kudos for you. I really wish I could have that mindset. Just bottle that. Ship it to me. That would be great. Thank you. But when we're going through the editing process, either through a self-edit or we're going through an editor, the one thing that is very common with that process is that you have to look at mistakes that you made, right? And it's nonstop mistakes, right? You're looking at typos, you're looking at bad sentences, you're looking at plot holes and stuff like that. And what you're really doing is you're facing the fact that everything that you've done has a wart on it. Now, outside of a situation with a really bad editor, because, I mean, there's bad editors out there and they're going to tear your stuff apart, and they're not going to do it for the sake of wanting to improve your story. They're just going to do it because it's a weird power trip thing that they're having. I've actually gone through that before. It was actually with my second editor, but story for another time. And most of the time when you're having to look at that feedback and you're having to see all the work that you're going to have to do for the revision, it can be a really daunting experience. And the best thing that I can tell you is that you kind of have to harden yourself against that process, because it's not going to go away. We have this weird thing where we as human beings want to be perfect at doing things the very first time that we do it. And the moment that we find out that we're not perfect or we don't get immediate praise for it, we become discouraged and we just give up. That might be a generational thing. That might be just kind of how we are as human beings because of the fear of social rejection. Pick whichever causality you want for that. But the simple fact of the matter is that part of the process doesn't go away. And if you give up, right, because it's the easy thing to do, then you're giving up on your story and you're giving up on the core reason that you really wanted to write this tale. And I don't really think you should do that. And I think the thing that kind of makes all of that even worse is that, let's say you go through the process, right? You write the first draft, you proofread it, you persevere through the proofreading phase, right? You got an editor go through it, editor made changes and stuff like that, and you got it formatted, you published it. Right? You did everything in your power to make this the best story that you could tell. And then you have readers who get a certain kind of pleasure out of tearing books apart. And, sometimes they'll want to tear your book apart. You can't really do anything about ugly people like that. I don't know what it is about individuals of that nature where their big cause in life is to take such a work of love and to destroy it. But you can't hold on to that. You can't be accountable for that, because unfortunately those people, no matter what your logical response to that approach is going to be, it won't matter, because they didn't come here to make sure that your book made sense. They just came here to showcase the fact that they were tearing something that you made apart. It's everywhere. You can find it in any medium, ranging from movies to books, video games, crochet. Like, I don't know, if it's some kind of activity that involves you having to spend hours on making it, that somebody will show up to want to destroy it, because I don't know, those are just the kind of people that they are. And you have to let it go. You can't hold on to those people, and you can't let those people have power over you at the same time. And that's why it's really easy for me to say that, but I know that for every negative comment that we hear about something that we put so much heart and soul into, it takes literally 7 compliments to kind of balance it out. And even with 100 compliments, we always linger on that one negative comment, because these books that we write, these stories that we tell, like, they come from us, right? These are our stories. We put so much time and hours, and that's kind of why we call them book babies, right? Because we care about them like they're our children. So when somebody comes out and tears it apart, it's a terrible experience. A really good metaphor for kind of what I'm talking about, and maybe if you're a teacher, maybe you went through this exercise, but I want to share it with you a little bit. When I was going through the teaching program and I was going through the introductory course of special education, that was one of my dual degrees that I got working with people with mental disabilities. We did this activity in class where we had to put things that we really loved inside of a jar. And so we brought the things that we really loved inside of the jar, and we came to like our little group tables, and the activity was to talk about the things in the jar and why we like them so much. And so we all did that. It was so wonderful to hear, everybody talk about these things that were very precious to them. And then right at the end of the class, the teacher went around with sticky notes, and she put a disorder on top of the jar, ADHD, autism, bipolar, ODD, all that kind of stuff. And I will always kind of remember that initial shock of the one that she put on top of mine. She timed it absolutely perfectly, because it was okay, it's time for us to go. So we didn't get a chance to sit down and process what she had done with that activity, but that always lingers with me. And the same thing goes with these books, right? Everything that we love and we care about is inside of these books, and all it takes is one person to throw a sticky note about why it sucks on there, and it just it really does radiate inside of us. Now, I wish in this video I could give you a solution to that particular warped problem when it comes to writing. There's none, unfortunately. There's something about our society where we've kind of fostered this hate and hate takedown that, the only thing that I could really recommend to you is to know that it's coming and to honestly mute it where you can mute it. And I do want to make sure that there is a difference between having there be constructive criticism and have people that just the maliciously tear apart books because they've got nothing else going on for themselves. But when you get constructive criticism, usually it's going to come from somebody who is going to have a really in-depth knowledge about writing and writing craft and all of that. And so they'll be able to not tell you only what's wrong, but be kind of have you considered, maybe doing this or trying that, and kind of push forward. That's really the best thing I could tell you to do. It's not going to go away. Know it's coming. Brace yourself. Move on. Keep going. Keep writing. Don't stop. I have a book that I'm kind of giving myself a pep talk on, so I want to share this difficulty with you, so that way it's relatable, right? You guys know I'm going through the exact same thing. But there's a book, and it's the second book of my series, right? I've got this long saga of books that I want to write, and for some reason, the second book seems to be my gatekeeper for the rest of these stories. And it's called The 10 of Brownies. And the first difficulty I actually ran into was when remember that abusive editor I told you about? It was actually with her. And that book was actually called The 10 of Brownies. And she said, I can't call it The 10 of Brownies because brownies is a derogatory term. And I said, no, it's not. And she said, well, I'm the editor and I know better. And I was like, okay, well, if brownies is a derogative term, why do the United States Girl Scouts use that as one of their ranks? And she's like, well, I'm going to have to get back to you on that, right? But even before I had finished the first draft and anything else, right? This is when I was with a different publisher, so I had to kind of give them the outline of my series. That's why she was coming at me about this book title and telling me that I had to change it and change an entire demographic of my book and all this other stuff. It was completely wild. And man, that was the start of the book. And sometimes when I'm writing this book, all I remember is her telling me I couldn't do something because it was derogatory. One thing that I have learned is that if somebody wants something to be derogatory, even if it's not, they'll find a way to make it derogatory, and you can't do anything about that. It goes right back to people that want to tear apart your book, right? And I kind of I've just accepted it. If people don't want to read my book, they're not going to read my book. If they want to say things, they're going to say things. But at the end of the day, this is still a story that I wanted to tell, right? I still want to tell it. Every now and then I look at that manuscript. I even got a cover for it, y'all. That's how invested I am in it. But then I realized that the problem wasn't so much I kept remembering that woman's voice in my ear. It was actually something else. It was so fundamental that I kind of kicked myself for it. one of the key reasons that I have continually struggled with this book is actually because my main character is not the main character in this book. I got really hyper-focused on this story with a side character who I really love. Like, I really love her growth and how she changes throughout the story and all of that. But when I was going back and I was rereading it and kind of revisiting it, I realized that, again, it's a series about my main character who is honestly a static character inside of this book. So one of the things that I've had to kind of step back and revisit is, what is her motive, right? What is her agency? How does she grow throughout this story? And what are the challenges that she accepts, right? And then the fun part is I had to take an even bigger step back and I had to ask myself, what is the core thing that this book is about, right? And sometimes that might seem really elementary for some folks to take a look at a story and be kind of like, oh, well, my story is about this. And then you'll have me with like way too many plot points and too many things going on. I haven't been able to kind of narrow it down to just like that one sentence, right? So what I did some meditation on is that I decided that my story is actually about overcoming that nagging voice, right? That voice that says I can't do it, that voice that says I'm not good enough to do that. Because as I went back and started fleshing out my main character arc, that was the similarity that she had with the side character, right? So it's almost like a mirror thing that's going on. And the moment that I kind of figured that out, it started to fall a little bit more into place as I reworked this story. I'm going to have to delete so much stuff also, by the way. I'm not looking forward to that. But, that's a different thing for another time. But that's just one of the fun difficulties that comes with working with a project that you tell yourself that you're not good enough for, that you don't have the chops to do. You get imposter syndrome, like all those things that push you down and send you back to that thing of like, well, I should just give up, because giving up is easier than trying to do the hard thing, right? Again, I'm going to circle back to that one comment I made, like, only you can really tell the story. And if you're going to give up on it, then it's going to die, right? That's what's going to happen to your story. Nobody's going to be able to tell it but you. So don't give up on your story. Don't give up on trying to work on it. And if you got to chunk it, you got to take it one page at a time, then do that. What's that phrase? Like, so the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Do it that way. I'm in the process of just basically writing like a couple hundred words a day, because that's just the easier thing for me to do right now for that particular book. But man, when you get in there and you start revising it and you tighten that stuff up, it's going to be so good. Right? Your book is going to be so good. And I would absolutely love it if you would let me know when you actually get to that point where you're about to hit that publish button. Shoot me an email, tag me on Twitter or whatever it's called. I think it's called X at this point. And share it with me and let me help you share it with other people too, because that's your baby, right? And I definitely want to take a look at it and read it and, enjoy this thing that you made. Keep going, keep writing, and know that at least at the end of the day, you will have one person who is going to be sitting here waiting to hear from you and read your book. So that is my pep talk about why you shouldn't give up on your book, why you should keep pushing through no matter what happens and no matter how people decide to react to your book. I, again, want to really make it clear that you have to keep going, right? Keep going. Don't let, the friction that you're encountering right now hold you back from telling a fantastic story. And this video will be here if you need to hear it again. It won't go anywhere. Feel free to send it to anybody else, another writer that you might be working with who's having like a really down moment with their story. Honestly, if you guys just need somebody to talk to, like, again, Twitter, Instagram, email, I'm not too far. I understand what it is that you're going through, and I would be happy to walk you off that ledge just a little tiny bit. All right. I'd be happy to have that chat with you. And you can find that contact information down below. So, have at it. Just know that there is somebody that's in your corner waiting to help you out wherever you need it. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out, listening to my pet talk. And I'm going to talk to you all again real soon. So, bye.